Hi, welcome back to my channel, and I'm going to be talking about Karen Glass, No Entitlement. I'm not going to be able to do this adequate, okay? First of all, I do recommend everybody getting it. That was #1 question I got was, what do you think of it? Should I get it? Yes. And when I first got it, I wasn't sure how well this would really help me because it's narration. You're just telling back. You don't have to convince me on the qualities of having narration in your homeschool life. What I kept coming back to is just of it being an art, which is not something I've really thought of it as. And I want to read something that she says on page 11. Art is not an artistic pursuit. The historical seven liberal arts, grammar, logic, rhetoric, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, were called arts and not sciences for a reason. In the ancient world, a science represented a body of knowledge to be acquired. An art is not a body of knowledge, it is something to be practiced. An art is something you do. This is why even in contemporary usage we speak of practicing law or practicing medicine. It is necessary to acquire some knowledge in order to be a lawyer or doctor, of course, but when knowing is expressed by doing, it becomes an art. Narration becomes an art when we lift it beyond its everyday uses and make it a purposeful pursuit. Many things that we do naturally can be polished and refined to a high degree of skill. Everyone can sing, but some train their voices to produce the highest quality of sublime music. Little children can jump and run, but athletes refine those abilities into record-breaking feats of strength and speed. We can all push letters on a keyboard, but accomplished typists bang out 90 words per minute with virtually no errors. Like many arts, narration appears deceptively simple at first glance. A child hears or reads a passage from history, science, literature, biography, travel, or other literary works, and then retells what he has read or heard in his own words. That's all it looks like most of the time. The same kind of retelling that we do every day, except that the subject matter is purposefully chosen by the teacher, and the narration is a required activity rather than a spontaneous one. That's just one quote she had in here. I remember reading this to my husband in the car and talking with him just about the different, communication and so many things like that, and the power of retelling and why we're doing narration and what, everybody does it in everyday life, whether they realize it or not, and we're just refining it. And he said that, he would like to read it. And this was a slow read for me, and I want to explain that a little bit. When I have a book that I really start thinking about and contemplating about, it takes me a ridiculously long time to read it. Y'all see me pop out these books left and right, but when something that I want to use in my life and I'm going through it, it takes me a long time to chew and digest and in my own way narrate what I've read in order to put it in the best way possible for everyday life. The only negative thing I have about this book was how she laid out her examples, and that was probably something more personal than something I think that many readers would have a problem with. But what would happen is, on this page she has all of her writing, and then suddenly on this page is all of the excerpt or examples, but then she would continue her thought from here on this page. And it was really difficult, especially when I was first beginning, to be in the middle of a sentence and look at the next page and it's examples, and I'm reading those and I go back and then she's continuing the thought, and I'd be, stop, okay, go back, read what she wrote, and then go, to the continued thought. I found that very distracting, and in the end, the only way I could combat it was I skipped all the examples. Or, you know, just the examples would be very helpful to kind of understand what it really looks like for each child. That is something that I think that she brings out really, really well in here, is that narration, since a child is telling it back in his own words, that there is no scorecard sheet to basically try to keep him accountable to. This is his presentation to you. This is his way of sharing the book with you. This is going to be unique to each student. Some students are very wordy, and this is a great way for them to share with you. It's one of their strengths, and they start honing in on the necessary skills to present themselves well. And for those that aren't so wordy, that less is more approach, they choose their words very carefully, and what they share with you is going to be very meaningful. The only thing that I really, really struggle with in this book, and just in everyday life, is knowing if, because each child is different, is he really doing his best? You know, am I really expecting his best because there is no standard to meet up to, or not standard, but because there's no like test to ace? You know, are you really giving me your best that you can do? And that's more of a habit thing that you just have to train with your child. So anyway, all that to say, the examples were a little difficult. Another thing that she was talking about is basically kind of the evolving of narration, and whether it starts from a child of 6 years old narrating Peter Rabbit, or a high schooler narrating to you George Orwell's 1984. They still do better, and they get better, and it all starts with the basicness and going up, because again, this is on them to do their very best. It's not on you to tell them what they need to be telling back to you. So that's the idea behind narration. She does quote Charlotte Mason a lot, so the art of narration obviously is a Charlotte Mason idea. So she does use Charlotte Mason quotes a lot, but she also uses other authorities, basically, that kind of back up some of the ideas behind Charlotte Mason's philosophy throughout the ages. It's not just, you know, back then, and it's not just present day. It's throughout all of it. Going back, I'm sorry, I got distracted with kids, but going back to the whole, it's a progression thing with narration. What I really thought was marvelous in here was how how Karen Glass showed that you always start with the oral narration and you develop into written narration, but this can look different for many people. You don't have to start at year 1 or 6 or whatever to begin narration. You can start it at any time in your homeschool journey. So if this is like a new concept to you, but you've been homeschooling 3 or 4 years, there's no reason not to start right now. And there's encouragement behind that, and what you can start doing to apply yourself. Probably the biggest thing that I got out from it was that it doesn't have to be a homeschool thing. You know, you can be doing this around the table with children coming home from school and helping them to retain what they learned by saying, well, what did you learn today, and how does this apply? So even those people that don't homeschool, I still think would find a huge benefit in this. I myself, an adult, a graduate and everything, I'm still finding this to be very valuable. When she started challenging the reader and the teachers, hey, tell back what you remember. And the teachers were like, wow, that's obviously something that's perfected and you grow stronger in, kind of as a mental exercise. It wasn't exactly as easy as everybody thought it was. And that was helpful for me, especially in kind of expecting my kids to, careful, John boy. produce a certain idea that I have about narration. Now, I did do a video showing my boys doing narration and how we did that, and I will leave that linked above for you, as well as down below, if I remember down below. So go ahead and check that out, because it just gave me a basic example. Now, I did ask more specific things, and she does talk about this. If the child doesn't remember certain things, that you can say, well, do you remember anything about this? And if they expound on that, then it's just one of those things that they learn to retain more, but you don't go further than that, and that's not necessarily where I have struggled. Another thing that I struggled with, I know I said I pretty much struggled with only one thing, and that was the examples on one page and her words on another. But another thing I struggled with was because I have an extra student in my homeschool, and sometimes I wonder if he's just being lazy, or, you know, if he's trying. And she always says, well, if they feel like they're missing out, then they'll try harder. But he was brought up in a public school, and so he ended up being a couple grades behind. And the reason I really struggle with that is because I don't think he cares if he misses out or not. I don't think it means anything to him. And I don't... You want to go inside? Yeah. Can you wait just a second while I finish the video? Yeah. You want to sit with me? No. No? You want to go inside? You want to sit with me? Yes. So that was probably another struggle I have, is really, how do you know if a student... Here, stand up. See? Look! There you are! Look! Look! Oh, be nice. Be nice. How do you really know if a student cares? And that's actually a Charlotte Mason quote. It's one of my favorites. At the end of his life, it isn't, or at the end of his school years, it isn't so much how much he knows, but how much he cares. And that's probably why I found it to be a frustrating thing, is because I want him to care, and I don't really know that he does. And there wasn't like something that says, okay, because we have this problem, you need to do this, this, and this solution, which is how I think and how I process life. So, frustrating thing that it's not really going to affect you, but it did affect me, and I'm just going to share that. So, I have a notebook that I guess you could use as a commonplace book. I was not going to write in this precious book. I've been trying so hard not to do that, not to highlight, not to... Okay. I have a notebook that I put quotes that I really like. That was something that I learned about myself, and I was trying to do better, was how easy it is for me to quote something that I really like. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but when I was trying to tell back in my own words what I was gleaning from it, it was really, really difficult. And it was so much easier just to quote somebody than it was to tell back in my own words. So, but yeah, I have a notebook of just so many things, and I wasn't going to write in my precious clean copy. And the further I got into it, and the more it was like, you know, when I would pick this up at any moment that I could get, and you know, try to write down, and sometimes I didn't have a moment to sit down and write anything, because that does take time. So I was just like dog-earing this, and I was highlighting it, and I was making little notes into it. What I love so much about this book is that her goal is to help you, the parent, reach the heart of your child. And that's something that is very passionate with me, is the heart of my children, and reaching them in ways that I can influence for the good. Charlotte Mason says that a child is not a vessel to pour into. It's a child is someone that you start enhancing them. You know, they're already there. Their personalities, their likes, their dislikes, they're already there, and you're just pulling them out, and you're strengthening their strengths, and you're helping them strengthen their weaknesses, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, and she was really good at kind of focusing on that mentality. Throughout the book, Karen Glass was, you know, sharing some of the different ways that you could do narration. Isn't just, you know, oral and written. Some students could record, some students could act out, and that was just like this big revelation for me, is because my children act out so many things. I have kids that dress up and then they play. or they make little like action videos. They don't do the comic thing, but that's more because I don't expose them to comics. But the narration is supposed to be the student's own way of expressing it, and not a copycat of what the teacher is expecting. So I thought that was really, really terrific. Some of the other things that were discussed in this book, and I don't want to share so much of it that you're like, okay, well, I don't really need the book now, because seriously, I am poor at narrating these back to you. But one of the things that she was discussing was the different types of narration. I don't know where it is, but basically it was talking about, you have the thought in narration, and then you just have the retelling narration. But the thought narration basically starts asking deeper questions, and this is more in the high school, like, well, should he have done that? What would have been an outcome if he had done the right thing? What would have been the outcome if he had done the wrong thing? And she calls it a different one, and I don't remember. It's in my notebook that I can't find. I have everything in that notebook, and with getting ready for a party, I've misplaced so much. But in school, getting ready for school, but just all these little things in here, and these little tips, and then these examples, and then even like conversations that you would have with your students with narration, so that you're not saying, okay, we're going to narrate today, and then the students are just like, oh my goodness, what do we do? What do we expect? What's that? And it's just how she presents so much of this. This book isn't, you know, like 500 pages. It's 206. She goes into 5-paragraph essays. She goes into the grammar, which is a one weakness of mine. I don't know how to teach Charlotte Mason grammar very well, and I'm scared to, if I'm honest. So I hope that was helpful for all of you out there. Yes, I do really recommend reading this. I had read her Consider This, and really enjoyed her video that I found on YouTube a couple years ago, and they really spoke to me. And then reading this, even though it took me a while, I am so glad I took my time and really thought it through and pondered and everything. And if I learned anything from this, it is that I am not as well expressed as I thought, but I'm going to get better. And I really like the idea of, even for me, just starting to narrate back to myself and to strengthen those qualities within me. So I hope this video is helpful for some of you out there trying to decide whether or not to purchase No and Tell. I really would recommend you doing it. I have a lot of Charlotte Mason books on my shelves right now, and this one is definitely going to stay. So thank you again for watching, and go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if you too would like to purchase your copy. I will leave a link in the description box below. It is an affiliate link, which means I recommend this book to you, so if you use that link, I get a little compensation for it. It's like a candy bar kind of compensation. That's okay. It goes into my coffee jar fund, and is at no extra expense to you. So that's when I put those links down there. It's so that you have the information at your tips on where, if you can find it cheaper, I recommend doing that. Why not? But it has all the information that you need, because Amazon is really good about putting the reviews on there, putting like ISBN numbers and all the kind of stuff, all different covers and things, audiobooks and all that. Anyway, it's all in that link that I share with you, and that's really the main reason why I do that with you. And let's be honest, a little coffee doesn't hurt at all. Alright, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.